We can start now. Good evening, everyone. So I welcome every one of us to this session with the Data Science Nigeria AI Plus Futa. And it's actually a program organized to enlighten us and to tell us more about data analytics and data engineering. So I welcome every one of us once again to this program, and I'm so sure it's going to be an enlightening one, and it's going to be a great one for every one of us because we're having here with us Mr. Israel Aminu. Yeah, Mr. Israel Aminu. So we'll be taking us on the topic introductory guide to data and analytics engineering. Um, Me personally, I'm actually a data analyst, and part of my goal this year is to become an analytics engineer. So I have with me here my pen and my jotter because I really want to know what step to go, although I've highlighted some things I want to do. But there's a saying that when you run, when you are looking afar on the shoulder of a mentor or of a leader, is far for it to be easier for you to get to wherever you are going faster. And I think I would like to run or fly on the shoulder of Mr. Aminu today from his wealth of experience. So before I bring up Mr. Aminu was actually one of DSN lead before. Yes, was a DSN lead for DSN lead campus for Unilag, and he was also a campus organizer for Zindi, and he has worked as a data scientist at Soft Nexus. He's currently working as a data engineer at Data to Boots, and I'm so sure he's one of our data engineering boss because these days it's really scary, scarce to hear anyone call themselves a data engineer. But Mr. Aminu has crossed that bridge and is bold enough to call himself a data engineer. And so I'll give it up for Mr. Aminu. So let's welcome Mr. Aminu as he take up the stage. Over to you, sir, Mr. Aminu. So yeah,
Yeah,
so let's keep our fire running in the chat box as we welcome in on board.
hello
Welcome,
everyone.
sir.
Good evening. Yeah,
Good
thanks.
evening.
Uh, so uh, yeah, good evening. So Alamiliko mentioned something about crossing into the career path of data engineering. So the truth is anybody can be data engineer. So it doesn't really matter about I know it's a very complex field, but it's not for yeah, I mean anyone can really be a data engineer. So just to highlight that data, there's nothing, it's nothing out of the ordinary, and it's not, well, it's complex, but it's not like out of the ordinary. So hello everyone, good evening. My name is Israel. So I'll be sharing some of my knowledge regarding the field of data and analytics engineering. Although I know that we're few in number, but I will try to see if we can try to make this a little bit interactive. I also prepared a slide that I would also share along the way. And yeah, please feel free to stop me as if you have a question or there are some things that you would want to gain clarity on. Or oh yeah, so that's that about it. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Please
Yes,
let
I
me know
can see your
because
screen.
I cannot. All right, thanks. Yeah, so Lawrence reached out to me a few days ago or so that they are having some session and they would like to do a talk on data and analytics engineering. I'm glad because when I was in DSN a few years ago, it was more on data science and machine learning, and I'm really glad that we are seeing a lot of members trying to shift into that area. You know, shifting into that area whereby it's not just about data science, but also into some other broader parts of other broader part, which is also the data engineering and and the analytics engineering side of things. Trust me, these are like the two major fields that are really evolving now, and they are also in high demand, which I'll also explain in my slide as well. So yeah, I'll be talking more about the two, but my core strength is in data engineering. Analytics engineering is something that we are already adopting in our data to bots as well. So we already have some analytics engineers. We have some analytics engineering projects that we're currently doing. But yeah, this is a new field that is also emerging, and there are a lot of companies who are also doing a lot of stuff around this field as well. So yeah, a brief history about me. My name is Israel. My name is Israel Aminu. I am a data engineer at Data to Bots. Well, I studied physics at Lagos State University. So for someone is saying that, yeah, this is pretty weird because how can somebody who do physics be doing data engineering? So yeah, it's actually very, very possible. It doesn't really matter about the background or whatever course you studied in the university or whatever. Even if you did not go to school, you can still become relevant in any of these fields, right? But I mean, going to school is also necessary too. But yeah, so I have a physics degree at Lagos State University, and I was trying to pick data engineering. We're talking about data engineering. We're talking about collection of data, which is one major thing. So collection of data can vary in various ways depending on how you look at it. So how are we collecting this data? Are we collecting this data in real time? Is this data moving at a very faster speed or at a very high velocity? How are we? What's the load mechanism of how we are pulling this data? Is it real time? Is it batch? Is it event driven? Is it an event driven system or whatnot? Right. So we have to know how we are collecting this data. So if we collect this data from these sources, are we doing any form of transformation in between? So is there any way that we're masking out PII columns or maybe trying to encrypt some data sets so that it's not made for everyone to see? So there are some use cases that could come up, maybe based on business requirement or maybe based on some particular standards, right? So once the data is then collected, we then store it. So when we store this data, it's possible that the data could be fit for purpose, which means this data is already ready for the analytics engineer to begin his work, or is ready for the data analyst to start drawing some analysis from the data, or it's possible that this data is already being displayed to a dashboard. So, or there could also be some intermediary process that could happen once the data has been collected and stored. And how the process, so how this process works: collection, the transformation, the storage, the entire orchestration of this entire workflow end to end is the data engineer's job. So it's very, very complex because this is where it covers an area of infrastructure and also covers an area of development. So your software engineering knowledge and also your infrastructure knowledge. So these are parts that are also very, very important. And also I've seen more people saying things like, oh, is this not a DevOps engineer job, or is this not something that a DevOps engineer is supposed to do? The truth is, DevOps engineer, like they follow through the life cycle of development and operations within a software engineering company or within a software company, right? But when it comes to how data moves from one system to another system, it's a data engineer's job to say, this is the best and most reliable way on how data should be transformed or how data should be sent or moved from one source to another source. The whole writing of the infrastructure code and whatnot can be done by data engineer, can also be done by DevOps engineer. But when it comes to what is the best way on how data should be moved from one system to another system, it is the job of a data engineer. Yeah. So I think that's what data engineering is. Then who is a data engineer? So if someone calls himself, sorry for that, if someone calls himself a data engineer, so you're looking at somebody who creates data ETL pipelines. So ETL pipelines, which basically means extract, transform, and load, right? And it could also be big data ETL pipeline. So big data is data we're referring to as gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes scale of data, right? So, and they're basically able to take this huge amount of data and translate it into insights. Well, they could translate it into insight, but as the data gets stored, they could also draw some inferences from this data as well. They also focus on production readiness of data and things like format, resilience, scaling, and security. Data engineers usually hail from a software engineering background and are proficient in programming languages like Java, Python, and Scala. Now, this is also very, very important. So, like I said earlier, a lot of things are happening within the data engineering space. That it's not just about the data itself. They are also more concerned with how this data is moving from one source to another source. So you have the infrastructure part. You also have the software engineering part. So like I said, when we're dealing with big systems or when we're dealing with complex, huge systems, we are concerned about so many things. We're concerned about a lot of things. And one is the infrastructure and one is the software engineering part. So, and this is something that every data engineer needs to know and every data engineer needs to be conversant about. So yeah, that's one point. Before I move on to this part, does anyone has any questions or can anyone hear me? Am I making any sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Can you
Thanks,
hear me?
Eko. Is there anyone?
Right.
Yeah, yes, I can hear you. Is there anyone that perhaps want to say something, or please just drop a hi because I can't really see the Zoom call. So maybe someone would like want to.
Okay, I'll help you monitor that, and eventually, if
All right.
someone wants to say anything, I'll get in touch with you.
All right, nice. So this part is very, very common. And this is an area I would like to touch on because this is very, very important in any career path you go to or any path you choose to venture into in the future, right? So, I mean, this is DSN and we are all conversant about without data, we can't do data science. Without data, we don't have it. There is no data engineer. Without data, there is, in fact, all of these roles cannot exist if we don't have data in the first place. And this is very, very important because when all these new roles get created, we all have a interdependency of how one role fits to another role and how another role fits to another role. That is why we have what we call the data space. So, and this basically consists of different roles that solely fits together into every data-driven organization which drives value creation. So if you go to any company that use data for their decision-making process, you will find roles like this present in that company, right? There will surely be a data engineer, there will surely be a data scientist, there could be a BI developer, which basically does the whole dashboarding and whatnot. You'll find an analytics engineer, you always find a DevOps engineer or an infrastructure engineer, depends. So yeah, this is one thing that is very concerned about the data space. Now, this is where you'll find those roles, your data engineer, your data analyst, your analytics engineer, you all find them here. And this diagram actually illustrates the hierarchy, like what is the level of complexity with regarding to regarding to the role that each of these guys play in the data space, right? So when we look at a data engineer, which is this guy here, you can see that this is where they really fit into regarding the hierarchy of needs, right? And when it comes to the data analyst or the analytics engineer, you always see them here. And the reason for this is because, like I said, when we are getting data, right, this data has to be collected. And when we are collecting this data has to run on a certain infrastructure, right? So your infrastructure engineer or your data engineer, these are the ones who design and actually implement these infrastructures to move this data. And it's only when data can be moved or data is brought into a system that all these other roles can also exist. Right. So when it comes to creating the data flows, when it comes to creating the infrastructure pipelines, ETLs, structured and unstructured data storage, the data engineer is the guy who handles that part. because this is where the demand for the data engineer is much more important. So once data has been moved from source to target, the data engineer's job is done. So once that life cycle is done, is completed, a data engineer's task ends. And this is where an analyst can connect maybe to a data warehouse or to a data lake, and then performs some of his analysis, or analytics engineer can connect to a data warehouse, maybe Snowflakes in this case, and be able to write some queries that can move this data to a finite storage location, or to a finite fit for purpose data warehouse. So this is understanding the hierarchy of needs is actually very, very important, because then you need to ask yourself, in this data space, where am I creating much more value? So, and the reason why I brought this up is because if we look at data science, right? Or if we look at data analysis, no problem. Okay, so as I was saying, this is regarding the technical difficulty and market demand. And if you look at this graph, and I'm sure we can all understand this because we all have some experience with data and some graphs and whatnot, right? So it's easy for us to understand this. So if we look at when technical difficulty increases, right, we can see that the machine learning engineer has a very, very high technical difficulty, if we can see here. And when it comes to increase in the market demand, you can see that the machine learning engineer does not have a very high market demand compared to an analytics engineer or as a data engineer. But when we look at analytics engineer, we can see that the technical difficulty is high, and also the market demand is also high as well. Or like I said, that analytics engineer is becoming a new emerging role that is going to, that's it's actually taking a lot of wave right now. And it's something that is going to exist for a very, very long time. And I'm going to explain why. But when we look at other roles like data engineering, you can see it has a very high technical difficulty, but is mostly sought after. So these are roles that are like very, very sought after, but the technical difficulty is extremely high. When we look at the market demand for a data steward, you can see it has low technical difficulty, but the market demand is also high. For a BI developer, it has a very high market demand, and also learning how to be a BI developer is not extremely hard. For data analyst, it doesn't have a very high technical difficulty, and is also very, very high as well. But when we look at roles like database administrator that has been existing for a very, very long time, it has a very low technical difficulty, but also the demand for database administrator is also very, very low. So this is something that is very, very important or crucial for somebody who wants to go into analytics engineering or data engineering. So you need to understand that it is a very, very complex field. It is not a easy field for everyone to go into. So it has to be something that you really, really want to do, and that is very, very that is also very, 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 very important. And this is something that can add value to you or yourself. So this is one point I was going to make regarding the field you want to jump into, right? And yeah, so someone might be asking that, okay, how is data engineering going to, how long is it going to be in the market, or how long is it going to stay? So the truth is, data engineering, analytics engineering is going to stay for a very, very long time, if you ask me. And there are actually some reports that says that, yeah, there's some report that actually proves that as well. We can see that data engineering has been increasing within 2020. So you can see that there's actually a lot of hires for a data engineer. So for somebody who wants to go into data engineering, you do not need to worry about getting jobs or getting placed. This is something that it's actually growing a lot, especially in Fortune 500 companies. There is a crazily high demand for data engineering, and even on data boards too, we're also hiring for data engineers as well. So this is a field that we believe is going to stay for a long period of time, because there is a huge demand for moving data from one source to another source. So this is something that is here to stay. So yeah, so that's that about it. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions before I talk more
Okay.
on the analytics engineering side? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think I will just wait because my question is basically on that analytics engineer. I wanted to ask the difference
Mm-hmm.
between analytics engineer and a data engineer. Well, since you said you are going to touch it, so I'll just allow my question to wait.
All right, nice. Does anyone have any question? Please feel free to ask.
Okay. All right, guys. If there is no question, you can just type in the chat box no. So we also take that as a response. Well, Mr. Aminu, I think you can continue. Yeah,
All
okay.
right,
AM say no question from this side yet.
no questions. All right, cool. So analytics engineering. So why did we have analytics engineers? So in few years back, that's in 20, I think 2020, maybe 2020, 2021. There has been, like I said, there was a lot of issues on, there was a lot of demand on data engineering, or there was a lot of demand to hire a lot of data engineers. So, and data engineers are actually going through a lot of stuff. They're actually going through a lot of work because they have to think about infrastructure, they have to think about monitoring, they have to think about orchestration, they have to think about writing ETL, they have to think about doing a lot of stuff. So a new stuff came out that, okay, why can't we just take some load off the data engineer and create a new niche or create a new role outside of data engineering called analytics engineering? And this is a part that actually deals with the ETL side of things of data. So like I said before, that a data engineer collects his data, transforms the data, then store the data. So that transformation part is where the analytics engineer comes in. So the normal software engineering standards, the normal best practices, this is what an analytics engineer does. So let's say we have collected some data and we have stored that data in a data warehouse and in a data warehouse. And there's a business requirement whereby we have a lot of SQL logic that we need to write to move that data from one data warehouse, maybe a staging data warehouse, to a fit for purpose data warehouse. All right. And then we want to, so there was a lot of logic that, okay, we want to get this value, we want to get this value, we need this KPI, we need that KPI, we want to make sure that we have this, we want to make sure that we have that, blah, 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 blah. So that entire process of creating the logic, or maybe the SQL logic, the Python logic, or whatnot, but the entire process of deriving that end-to-end logic that takes in the source data or the data the data engineer has already provided into creating the fit for purpose data set, that entire end-to-end life cycle is called analytics engineering. So whereby you are able to create a system that can transform this data using SQL, mostly SQL most of the time, that transforms this data from source. And once the data is then transformed, it is then created into a different database or data warehouse or a different schema. And that data is then directly consumed by the end user. So that is the end-to-end lifecycle process. So analytics engineer doesn't need to worry about infrastructure. It doesn't need to worry about orchestration. It doesn't need to worry about the lifecycle end-to-end of the pipeline. Or what he's more concerned about is how do we transform data that is already there? Or how do we make sure that we can be able to transform or change the structure of how data is transformed within a system? So that's the end-to-end process of analytics engineering, because data engineers are going through a lot of work, and there is a need to there's a need for separations of concerns, which means we need to separate that transformation part. And some of the tools that is commonly used in analytics engineering, which I'm sure you must have heard of, is DBT. So DBT is a framework that was built to mainly for analytics engineers. So it's a very, very good framework. I've used it before. And it's a framework that saves a lot of time or a lot of processes, whereby you can be able to connect to your data source, write your transformation logic, be able to see your DAGs, and be able to orchestrate the entire process flow of how you want data to move from your source to your target. So DBT is one thing. If anybody wants to get started with data engineering, I would encourage the person to learn DBT. Yeah, the second thing is SQL. So your SQL must be very, very, very good. So, and it's not just basic SQL, more of like your advanced SQLs, your joins, your CTEs, your subqueries and whatnot. Those are parts and areas you want to really, really perfect if you want to go into the analytics engineering field. Another thing again is best software practices and software standards. That is actually very, very important, because you are going to be writing a lot of queries or a lot of code, and you have to follow the dry principle, the KISS principle, testing, and understanding what even writing test means in analytics engineering, because it's also there in DBT. So these are some things that are also very important for analytics engineers for them to know. And another thing, again, they would also have to know is data warehousing concepts. So you need to understand data warehousing from a granular level, right? So when it comes to your facts, your dimensions, your 3NF, your star schema, your snowflake schema. So those are some data warehousing concepts analytics engineer needs to know, because these are things that, when you are ingesting a lot of data, you need to understand, how do we create our facts? How do we create our dimensions? How do we create this? How do we create that? So these are languages that you see a lot of the analytics engineer talks about. They talk about these things a lot, right? So these are like introduction to analytics engineering. And that's everything you need to know to get started as an analytics engineer. So you must perfect your SQL, you must know DBT because it's a new framework and a lot of companies are already adopting that framework already into their system. You must have a very good software engineering best practice. You must know how to write good SQL. And also, you must be very, very good with your data warehousing knowledge. This is something that you also need to know very well if you want to be an analytics engineer. So I think I already brushed through data engineering and also brushed through analytics engineering, and also how these two roles fit into the whole data space. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm able to save us some time, but that's everything. Yeah, I think that's everything you need to know on analytics engineering, at least the introductory part of analytics engineering. So when we start drilling down or start going low level into some concepts, then yeah, I don't think 1 hour is sufficient or enough to explain the end-to-end process of that. But yeah, that's everything that is needed to know. Does anyone have any questions?
Um, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Okay.
I said I think that's really, really very good one. Like I've always been waiting to hear that kind of response. I think I kind of have some clarity now on the analytics part. So my question is, will you just advise just going directly to becoming a data engineer or stopping as being an analytics engineer? Like, what's your take on the two roles? Because it seems as if analytics engineer is trying to settle less for from being a data engineer, or as if I don't the way I'm picturing it in my head is as if I'm not aiming too high, but I just try to aim
No,
somewhere in between the line.
yeah, that's a very, very, very good question. So the truth is you are not missing out on anything. So, and it also depends on what you can handle. So like me, I love complex problems. I have been dealing with a lot of complexity like many years now. But the major point there is that it really depends on your core strengths. Like for some people, their head can be in infrastructure today, their head can be in ETL tomorrow, they can be monitoring the logs, they can be checking a field pipeline, they can be dealing with a lot of monitoring, they can be receiving a lot of incidents, checking the pipe. So there's a lot of things, a lot of hassle that data engineers go through. Let's be fair. The hassle that a data engineer goes through is a lot. Like it's a lot of stuff. The analytics engineer, on the other hand, is a very, very good path. And for somebody who is very, very good with SQL, the reason why we have that field is because you don't actually need to know every single thing before you can get started as an analytics engineer. You don't need to know you don't need to know things relating to infrastructure. You don't need to know things relating to monitoring. You don't need to know things relating to this, to that. So with your basic knowledge in SQL and your basic knowledge of data warehousing concepts, and your basic knowledge of software engineering and DBT, which is a very popular framework, you can get started as an analytics engineer. So, but as a data engineer, you might need to know Terraform. You definitely need to know Terraform. You need to know CloudFormation, that for those who are using AWS. You need to know like AWS native data, like AWS data native applications that is being used. You need to know so many things: Airflow, orchestration, then step functions. That's for AWS. So there are so many tools that you need to cover, and there are some that are even emerging that you even need to get familiar with, because in your next job offer, that's what you might be doing. So there's a lot of complexities when it comes to data engineering. So, and that is why they are trying to separate those concerns, that you don't really need to be everywhere for you to be able to work in the data space. Having a very good software engineering background and understanding SQL and data warehousing should be able to land you a job as an analytics engineer. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir.
You are
Okay,
welcome.
so okay, I want to play if you can talk a little on. Okay, there's a question in the chat, and I'll
Yeah,
be reading it.
I
Say,
can, yeah, I saw it. I saw it. I can walk through this in 2 minutes. Okay.
okay,
I joined late. If you can talk a little on ML. So machine learning. So um my advice is, it's a good field. Trust me. I mean, I think any field you go into, you would always make ends meet from there. That is guaranteed. But what's much more important is, what is the market value for all these fields, right? So as a machine learning engineer, the market value of being a machine learning engineer and being a data engineer, you can easily get a job as a data engineer than as a machine learning engineer, because there's a lot of data that we need to bring into a system for an ML engineer to be able to, in fact, the analyst even has to analyze the data or do some stuff, and the model has to be done, or to at least to a level of completion, before the ML engineer can deploy this model or build and scale this model. So the dependency level is at the fourth or fifth side of things before the ML engineer gets pulled into the project, right? So the data has to be there, analysis has to be done on the data, model has to be built on the data before the ML engineer can then deploy and scale the model that has already been deployed, right? So there's a lot of huge interdependency relating to that field. Of course, there's a lot of market share in that side of things, right? So if you're going into machine learning engineering, it's a very cool field. There's a lot of interesting stuff. But for me, the part that is really, really buzzing more in the ML side of things is the computer vision and the computer vision and the natural language processing side, at least from what I'm conversant with. It's more of the CV and NLP. So that's the ML side of things that is really the demand is actually extremely high for those roles, because there are a lot of things that are coming up. There are a lot of use cases that are coming up that they are more specifically looking for people who have knowledge on computer vision and people who have more knowledge on natural languaging, because there's a lot of text data that is being generated. So yeah, those are the takes I can give on machine learning engineering or ML. I don't know if there's any other question. Okay, any data field you go into, you would make what matters most the market. Exactly. Yeah. So any field you go into, trust me, you would always you would always get hired one way or the other, because, but my advice, please don't be a database administrator, because it's a field that is slowly dying. Yeah, it's a field that is slowly dying, because a lot of things have been replaced. um a lot of things have been replaced. So database administrator, you can do it, but it's only if you want to work in a bank or if you want to work in legacy system applications. But with the new things that is being developed now, you'd rarely find a database administrator anymore. So but when you come to fields like data science, data engineering, analytics engineering, ML engineering, you know, data analytics, those are fields that will always be there for a very long time. So before anything comes up or before AI takes over the world, but these are fields that will always remain for a very long time. So anyone you choose to go into, you would always benefit from it. You would always enjoy the benefit from it. So, but what's much more important is which one is the most. I mean, which one can provide me the most value and whatnot. So, like for me, I was doing data science at some point. Then I went into machine learning. Then I went into data engineering. And the reason for that was because for me as a data scientist, I loved building models. But then after doing a model.fit and I already have my supervised learning model, and then I'm like, okay, this model just sits on my system. How do I deploy this model? Then the curiosity for that came. I'm like, okay, I have to dockerize this model. I have to deploy this to a server somewhere. Then I have to build an API layer on top of that model. Then I have to. So I was doing some things around that area, did some jobs around that area as well. But then I was like, okay, that's just it. That's not that. Like after that, you're technically done, right? But when it comes to a situation, or when it comes to an environment whereby you are responsible for managing so many things, like the infrastructure that runs it, the process at which data is moving from one source to another source, the rest of which. So when it comes to that never-ending process whereby you are being accountable for so many things or relating to so many things in the data space, that was where I fell in love with, and that was why I settled for data engineering. So it really matters on your interest, and anyone you choose, you would always be fine. Yeah.
I think thank you so much, Mr. Aminu. You have done justice to all our questions. Like really. Now I'm really very much interested because now I'm really thinking like, okay, should I just pick up my bow and just focus on data engineering? And oh, okay, my question now is that is it possible to create a roadmap, personal roadmap for yourself and make maybe an analytics engineering like a checkpoint then where you aim for the destination of a data engineer, something like that. Is it something
So
feasible?
I'll give the one for analytics engineer because it's a bit straightforward. Master your SQL. It's very important. You need to know your SQL, like advanced level SQL. So yeah, it's actually very important. SQL is it's something that you are going to write and you're going to use for a very long time. Then understand data warehousing concepts, because this is what you'll be communicating with as an analytics engineer every single day. So when they tell you things like facts, fact table, dimension table, 1NF, 2NF, 3NF, star schema, snowflake schema, CDC, SDC, slow changing dimension, change data capture. when they start mentioning all these technologies to you, these are analytics engineering terminologies, right? And these are things that you are always going to experience. So have very good knowledge of your data warehousing. Then once you've done that, build a project around something like that, then learn DBT. Learn DBT is a framework that is going to be in high demand very well because DBT and Snowflake. So those two, Snowflake is data warehousing tool you can use, but DBT is a tool that is going to, the demand is going to be very, very, very high for analytics engineer, right? Like everybody's going to ask you, do you know DBT? Do you know DBT? Because this is the go-to tool for analytics engineers, the tool that is going to be used a lot. And so, yeah, once you've learned that, then practice and perfect your software engineering practices. And yeah, then once that is all done, then you can start applying for jobs and building some capstone projects out of that. But yeah, I think that's all you need to know. I think that's the clear roadmap I can give for analytics engineering.
Okay. I think last question for me. Like, in how many months or years will it take to build to become either an analytics engineer or a data engineer?
So it depends. So for somebody who is working day and night, and for someone who is only learning 6 hours a day, there is a very huge distinction, right? So there is no generic answer. There is no generic answer for that. But I think if you really want to learn something, it really depends on how much effort you put into it, right? So if I say 6 months and somebody's learning the stuff morning, then burn the candles in the midnight to learn, and is doing that for 6 months, the person will be way ahead of somebody who has been doing it for 1 or 2 years. So there is really no generic answer to that. But
Wow.
the best thing I can just give there is that it depends on how much you really, really want to put into it, right? So there is no generic answer for that really, but how much time you dedicate to it. Yeah, and I think that's just how it is for every other field as well.
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
you're welcome.
So I don't know if anyone has any question before we listen to the parting word or what Mr. Aminu has to tell us finally. Anyone? You can just unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay. It seems there is no question. So we would like to hear from you, Mr. Aminu. What would be your final advice for us, most especially in this data field? We have heard enough of data engineering and analytics engineering as introduction, and we have learned some skills to master some. Okay, yeah, that's it. We have also not given us maybe materials to go through or some particular course we can take to becoming a data engineer or analytics engineer. So I think you
To be
can
honest,
help us put wrap everything together.
everything is online. Everything is online, but I will try to see if I can streamline a process. I think we have something, but there is a process for everything. So I'll try to see if I can come up with something, and I'll share it across.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
no problem.
So we'd like to
Yeah.
hear your parting words for us.
Okay. Well, parting words, no parting words for me. I am. I don't know what to say, but yeah, I believe most of you guys are still in school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, my advice majorly is, I think you guys have it's definitely a good path that you guys have taken. I mean, yeah, like you guys are actually doing a lot of stuff. I think community is one thing that's also helped me to in when I was also in school as well. It's one thing that's really, really impacted me, and it's one thing that's really, really helped my growth also because from there I've met a lot of people, and they've been able to help me. So in as much as you try to learn these tools, in as much as you try to um, perfect or master your craft, try as much as possible to stick with one another, or to stick with each other, right? I think it's very, very important, because your next job might come from your friend that you know through your community, and or the next opportunity that you might get might come from someone that you've met, or many things can happen. So community is something that I would really, really strongly advise you guys take part into, because it has helped me. And if not for community, I'm sure I would not be where I am today as well, because there are so many people you will meet there. There are so many opportunities you would experience, and there are so many offers you will get. Not just the good part. I mean, the good part is there, but the benefit is also immense. So that's one takeaway I would leave. Try to participate in community as much as possible. Go for boot camps, go for hackathons, go for counseling. Do everything that you must, even if it means spending, I mean, you're spending your own personal money, but the development you're putting into these things always have a ripple effect on the future, and some way, somehow, it always has a good end for me. So that's one takeaway I would always give. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm so grateful, like having you here, and yeah, you speak to us. Me personally, please watch out for my connect on LinkedIn. I actually sent a connect already. I think network did not
Okay.
allow it to go, but I'm going to resend it as the meeting is ending. I'm resending it because I would
No
so much
problem.
love to connect it to you and have you in our network. I don't mind in the chat, but it can in the chat you can help us drop your LinkedIn. Okay, I think I can copy it here so that every other person can connect with you.
Okay.
Um, I'll be doing this. All right. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
Mr. Aminu's LinkedIn um, profile. So do well to connect and also network is riding on the shoulder of a mentor. Yeah. I really know what to learn more from him. Like I so much enjoy how cool it was and the way he actually explained things. And it's such a great opportunity that is also a senior boss at DSN. Yeah, I was once not call him boss, but it's boss. Like it's nice meeting you, boss. So thank you very much for coming and gracing this our occasion. I'm so sure we have taken one or two from this and we have learned something. So as he has mentioned, let's do well to pick up a career in data and check for it. He gave us the chart, and also he said he's going to be sending the material. So as soon as the material get across, I'll be sending it to the DSN group. So if you are not on the group, you can always reach out to me on how to be added to DSN AI futsal group. So thank you very much, Mr. Aminu. We hope to have some other sessions with you again where you I don't know, it might actually be more practical sessions and like and on code like
Yeah,
some
no
other time.
problem.
Thank you, sir, for your time.
No
Yes,
problem.
sir.
All right then.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
All right, sir. So all right, guys, we have come to the end of today's session.